Hello, everybody out there in Yes Land. Let me just check that my volume is good. But yeah, thanks for waiting. And I'm going live on facebook.com/slash Yesshift as I'm recording to give my review of the Yes show at the Wiltern. And yeah, okay, I can hear myself well. Maybe you heard me twice right there, but yeah, so hello everyone. I saw Yes at the Wiltern in Los Angeles on Monday night, October 30th, 2023, and I'm just sharing this around right now. I considered going live the morning after, but it was Halloween, so there's lots of stuff going on, and I figured, well, today will probably be a better day to go live with my review. So yeah, giving my review of the Yes show at the Wiltern. And so I will go into spoilers, but before I do, just giving the bare bones uh, overall feel I got from this show. I really enjoyed it a lot, so much. And the Roger Dean lecture that opened it, I was very engaged with it, as were a bunch of other people from the looks of it. And yeah, there were a couple things in the set a couple minor things that I do have critiques about. But overall, like everyone was just giving strong performances for the most part. There were just like a couple bits during a couple different songs, perhaps. But yeah, everyone was just playing very strong, giving their effort in each of these songs. And yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. So the Wiltern, it's not a venue I've been to before, but it's a really cool looking venue. It's even got a bar upstairs, although I didn't really have time to get anything. I was very set on what I needed to get from the merch and whatnot. When I arrived there, I actually bumped into Christina from Lobate Scarp, and I also met later that night after the show, I bumped into Adam from Lobate Scarp as well. And I also met their respective partners, Jim and Diane, and a couple other friends of theirs. So really cool to be able to mingle with familiar faces and new faces. And it's just so weird to talk about the podcast with people in person, even overhearing like, "Oh, love the podcast," and just like having to turn around, and it's surreal. But the big thing that I knew going to this the possibility of also meeting Roger Dean, that could happen because I'd been hearing that he sort of walks around before the show. Last year, I've talked about this before. The Trading Boundaries people, brought Roger Dean's art to exhibit prior to the Yes Show. Last year, I saw them in El Cajon in their Close to the Edge 50th anniversary tour. And, I cannot stress how seeing Roger Dean's art in person really is something else. See, you can get the best footage of it, and it it could get close to what it's like seeing it in person, but not quite. Like if you ever have a chance to see the art in person, like that is a must. But yeah, I was looking at the art and soaking it in, and then someone pointed out that Roger Dean was at this little table. So I turned around and saw him. Other fans were coming up to him as well. So I went up to him. I asked for like if I could get a picture with him, which I'll pull up right now, just real quick. Yeah, I took some neat photos, which I've posted on the Yesshift page. You can find them in the photos albums. But yeah, I've got this on my phone, just scrolling past the Halloween pics. Let me make sure that this is visible enough on the screen. Um, I'm also getting close to my mic just in case that makes it sound better. But uh, yeah, I've got that here. So it's me and Roger. It looks better in the photos album than like holding up a screen against the camera. And I was wearing this, the Royal Affair tour because I figure if Roger's there and all this stuff is there, like, wear something that exhibits some of the logos he did. So, of course, you got Yes, Asia, and you also got John Lodge and Carl Palmer ELP Legacy in that font. So I told him about the trip, that me and my dad went to San Francisco, saw the Secret Path, and that we love his and Freya's work. It's just so beautiful, like the works from both of them. And he seemed to enjoy that. And I told him about the podcast. So after the tour, maybe we'll be able to try to reach out again and see if he's uh, if he's at all able to come on the show at some point. But even if he ends up being like too busy, like just being able to meet him and see his art, like it's just like what a treat that was. And I did see him again later in the duration of the event. So after this, I went over to the merch stand. I was very set on getting the tour book, the Classic Tales of Yes tour book. Um, and yeah, so sorry, I'm just sharing this again. Um, it's not so easy multitasking when it's just me, but yeah, so I got the Classic Tales of Yes tour book put together by the Gottlieb Brothers. I actually have it right here. Um, the design of the cover for this one is comparatively, not as busy as some of the others, and busy in a good way, but a bit more unassuming this time around. But of course, the designs inside are really cool. I'll just, for example, like you got all that, the band photo. Um, yeah, I'm just like flipping through this to give you all a good idea. There are some amazing photos in this, as well as interviews, quotes. It's just so good. And of course, well, I'll tell you about that later. And this came with the stickers. Apparently, there was, the Gottlieb brothers were like telling people to make sure you ask if they have these stickers. And yeah, they gave me the tour book at the merch stand with these stickers with the band members on them. I'm not much of a sticker person. Like, I don't really peel stickers off and put them on things, but yeah, I think I'm gonna keep these on the actual, the thing that they came on. But I'm curious, what are other people's habits when it comes to stickers? Like, do you leave them on the original thing that they came on, or do you put them on your laptop, or what? Because I think for me, it kind of stems from like childhood, just the very sight of seeing a sticker game peeled off and maybe it gets torn in half and it ends up looking ugly. So I think I'd like to see these things preserved, which is why I'll keep these on the main thing that they came on. But yeah, that's me personally. Um, and I'll talk more about the tour book after I talk about the set list. There are some amazing nuggets in there that are worth talking about. I won't spoil the whole thing, of course, but because I really want people to get it and read it. Um, but so yeah, I got the tour book, And I got back in line. Like by this point, there was a line of people trying to get up to Roger Dean so that he can sign some things for them. And he was very generous with his time signing things for people. But it came close to showtime, the lecture that he was about to do. But when he had to leave, he was like, I'll be here during the intermission. And so that was very nice of him. So I went up the stairs and over to my seat. Um, and Roger Dean gave this lecture about his art, and it was about 30 minutes, this lecture. Beforehand, I'd been hearing different things about, what it seemed like the audience reactions were, but from what I could tell, it felt like like in general, the audience here was very engaged with the lecture, and sometimes he would say something funny, like, make a jab at the movie Avatar, and that made people laugh. He also told a story about uh, flying to Japan and the band trying to get ideas for the next album, which would be Tales from Topographic Oceans. And there's a funny story there involving a suspicious cake, and I don't know if it was literally cake or something else, but yeah, talking about, him and John talking about ley lines later on, after the flight, I think when they were actually in Japan. So the Tales cover, and he had this presentation. His art was being shown on this screen, and he went through. I think the first one that we recognized from Yes was the classic Yes cover. The compilation from 1981, and he talked about how it was also an architectural design. They talked a bit about Steve Howe's beginnings, the cover of that album. At one point, he talked about the the Asia logo. The story we've heard about how someone at the label couldn't read it at first, which was just so bizarre for me to fathom because that logo is so iconic and I feel like it's easy to read. But someone at the label also said, "We don't think we have a hit record here," and that made people laugh. I was like, "What?" Because obviously that first Asia album was such a big hit, and the rest was history. Um, it's such a historical landmark of that period. Let me just scoot the screen back a little bit. Um, okay, is that better? It doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, like this lecture, like I was really hanging on to every word that he was saying, and he told some amazing anecdotes and talking about art and some of his. Wait, what? Hang on. Um. Oh, okay. So yeah, sorry, I just gotta check something real quick. Um. Yeah. So he was also telling this story about you know infamously, I guess you could say, going for the one did not have Roger Dean cover. And he told the story of, meeting with John Anderson. I guess the rest of the band were absent at the time. And, um, and he we've heard the story of, him describing which artwork, describing the artwork that he presented for going for the one, and the description of it made it sound like it was I think it's the Flights of Icarus painting. The one with the floating island in the blue sky. I think it's called Flights of Icarus. Let me just double check that real quick. Flights of Icarus. Um, yeah, it's Flights of Icarus. But yeah, during this lecture, he very explicitly said that that was the artwork. He showed the artwork of it and said, "This is the idea I had in mind for the Going for the One album." And John Anderson had his own ideas, like, "This is what I want." And in the end, neither of them got what they wanted, is what he said. Um, so yeah, that was a very cool story, of course. And uh, yeah, so it was a really great lecture. It really flew by, and is I think a really cool way to open the show. And the audience was very respectful during this portion, so I was very happy with how it went down. And when the lecture was ending, he presented a silent clip of the Tales tour, from the 70s. And I don't know if this was one of the bits of footage we've seen on YouTube or if this was something else, but it looked like it was maybe skipping around a little bit. At first, I couldn't tell if it was from the Tales tour or the 76 tour, but he said it was from the Tales tour, and it had that feel of some of the millimeter footage that pops up now and then on YouTube. That's like rare stuff that comes back to the surface on the internet. So that was really cool. And after the lecture, he was like, "Okay, I'm gonna be out and back." And so some of us went back. This was the intermission. It was about 20 minutes. Some of us went back to the little table where he would be, and uh, went back in line. And eventually, he came to the little table, and people had all sorts of things. Someone had their copy of a Relayer uh, LP, the sleeve at least. And um, I also overheard people talking about like Song of Seven, just overhearing people talk about Yes related stuff and solo stuff. So it's really cool being in that atmosphere. I just love that. There's lots to talk about when it comes to Yes and its members. But yeah, I had the tour program, just making sure the stickers don't fall out anywhere. And I had Roger Dean sign it right here. I didn't have anywhere particular in mind that I wanted him to sign it. Like I was kind of going back and forth in my head, like, should it be the front or should it be one of his artworks, like Mirror to the Sky or Tails? And I just figured, he'll know where to sign it. Um, I'm happy, like, wherever, basically. So he signed it, and I asked him, when you present, like, something along these lines. I don't know if it was with these exact words, but I basically asked, when you presented that artwork to the band for Going for the One, had they already settled on the title for the album? And he said, I don't know. I thought they had. And my reason for asking that question was because I feel like if Roger Dean's painting Flights of Icarus had been used for that album, I'm not sure that Going for the One is a title that fits the best with that piece of artwork. Like, I think maybe the album would have been titled Awaken if they were to name it after one of the tracks, because I feel like that fits the thing so well with the island and the tree. So, like, just imagine if the 77 album had been titled Awaken. Like, you go Tales from Topographic Oceans, Relayer, Awaken, and then you get Tormadoed. I should also mention that I really like how the tour book has a similar color, not the exact same, but to the Tormado Story color supplement from Kevin Mulrine. Another great book, The Tormado Story. Also, during the lecture, I'd heard this before, I think in one of Roger Dean's live stream Q&As, that he always thought Gates of Delirium would have been a better title for the Relayer album. And I kind of agree. Relayer is I can sort of understand it. It's one word, it's more succinct. But the Gates of Delirium, it just fits that cover. Like, that is the cover. But anyway, getting back to this exchange with Roger Dean, I was also. He was saying that he feels like the cover that they ended up going with for going for the one didn't really do the music justice. And I told him that I think his cover would have been excellent for that album. You know, it really would have fit with the music. And I think he really enjoyed that. So, again, a great gentleman. He's very generous with his time, you know, signing all the stuff for people. And it's really cool that he agreed to come along on this tour. I don't know if he's. I would hope that he continues doing this for when they bring this classic Tales of Yes tour across the Atlantic, you know, in the UK or Europe or wherever it's going next, because I think that's a real treat for people. And I also, kind of like last year on the Close to the Edge 50th tour, I got the sense that there were some people coming to these Yes concerts who are not steeped as much in the Yes history as some of us are. You know, we like to think, some of us sort of assume that, oh, it's just the diehard Yes fans who go to these things, but there are a bit more casual fans or people who know some things on a surface level, because there were a couple people who were unaware of uh, who Roger Dean is, and like I heard someone say, "Oh, that's the person who does the art for Yes," and someone asked me who's that person's name, and so I think there are like some people who come to these and they're not as deep into Yes, and uh, who does the art, who does the producing or whatever. So these shows could potentially be their gateway into wanting to learn more than they already know about Yes and the history. So again, I think it was a really brilliant choice to have Roger Dean open the whole thing, because I'd been hearing different things from people, but I think after having gone to it, I think the lecture was great. I mean, if Roger Dean were a college professor, like doing lectures like every day, like attending that class would be amazing. He actually talked about how he was asked to come to, I think, some university lectures, but yeah, I know there are only a couple dates or a few dates left in this tour, but the lecture is very much worth seeing, and hopefully he brings it across the pond as well. So now on to the Yes Show. So funny enough, after talking about going for the one with Roger, I heard Young Person's Guide to Orchestra, you know, the opening music for this particular tour. Um, and, you know, I was sort of rushing back to my seat because it's like, oh, the show's gonna start, because the 20-minute intermission was over. And I went back to my seat, and this is where the Yes Show began. You know, I got back to my seat in time for the beginning of what turned out to be going for the one. And I knew going into this show what the set list was. Um, like, but I also, like, in the couple shows prior, um, well, a couple shows ago, there were like two different shows where they had to be canceled because of a hand injury that Steve Howe had. But the show before this one was not canceled, and I'd heard that a couple songs had been cut from that show. They'd cut out Going for the One and the abridged version of America. I'm guessing maybe because Steve was still recovering, those songs couldn't be played at that show, but both of those songs were played at this show, thankfully. Um, So yeah, going for the one was very energetic, a great start. They did it very well, and then after that, they played a song that has not been played since the original tour that it was on, and that is "It Will Be a Good Day," which is probably my favorite song on the ladder. I definitely know all the lyrics to it, so I was kind of singing along to it. I was singing along to pretty much all of these songs, where I could. And it was just so beautifully done, this song. And it was kind of neat that they went from, starting off with the huge rock and roller song and then going into something softer, more melodic. And it's a great song. It's a deep cut that I really appreciate. I mean, next year the ladder is going to be 25 years old, if you can believe it. So at this point, like, this is a classic Yes song. Like, we're at a point where I feel like the keys to ascension through magnification stuff is classic, and that's kind of scary to think about. But then after that was Machine Messiah, which I'd heard was the opener for this show back in uh, or the opener for the previous show before this one, I should say. So I guess going into this, expecting that the two songs I mentioned that had been cut might be cut, I was kind of expecting Machine Messiah to open, but no, like, it was a third track on this, and it was this is where there were a couple moments where I feel like they, the part where Jeff Downs does a I feel like his keyboards there could have been louder. I couldn't really hear them very well, so I don't know if there's like something going on there. But half a minute or a minute later, his keyboards are back up to a good volume. So I feel like Machine Messiah was one where there's a bit or maybe a couple bits that needed to be ironed out. But again, a great song. I think this might be. I've seen it live at least 3 times now. I know I saw it on the Topographic Drama tour and on the Yes and Asia tour. That one being my first concert. I think that one might be my favorite version of it that I've seen in person. So after Machine Messiah, uh, Steve Howe asks, "How are we all doing tonight?" And everyone's cheering, and he talks about this was part of the first Yes set that I did, and so I knew this was coming, and I was kind of laughing inside because of what Dad's reaction would be. So they start playing "I've Seen All Good People," and people were really into this, and like I've said before, I've seen All Good People, definitely one of the most overplayed Yes songs. I could live with it being cut from the set, but when it's played live and you're there, like, you just can't help but get into the energy of it. So yeah, it wasn't really a surprise that they played it, and classic Tales of Yes. They probably figure, well, we gotta play that one. That's like the classic that we do. So yeah, after that one, they played the abridged version of America, which I should say it was an instrumental version, so it doesn't have the lyrics. I don't know what the decision making for this was. I don't know if, like, they got a call and were like, "Hey, can you not sing the Paul Simon bits?" And or if they just want to showcase the yesiness of it first and foremost. So it felt like a jam that they were doing, basically, but it was the instrumental section that you hear. Uh, you know, it was about maybe 4 minutes, and it's before you hear that last bit where it's like, "Kathy, I'm lost," I said. So basically, the instrumental bits that lead up to that, and then instead of going into that, it goes into the outro, instrumental section, and it was pretty good. But with the Keys to Ascension version of that song being so ingrained in me, I was kind of missing the final beats on that version. It ended like the studio version, whereas on Keys to Ascension you get an extra do 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 do, which I was kind of missing from the end of that. But after that, we get Time and a Word, and I guess this is their selection to represent the Banks era. There are definitely other songs from that era that I would have chosen personally, but it was a pretty good performance. It felt like they were doing the arrangement for the that they had done on the 1978 tour. That's part of the big medley. I'm pretty sure they've done it like this before within the last several years. So it was really good. I should say someone who was like sitting next to me was like really grooving and like dancing to like a bunch of these and really into it. Um, and then we get to South Side of the Sky, another strong performance. What was kind of strange was during the bit in the middle where it's like do 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 do. It gradually became got to a point where it was just Jeff playing, and it was so quiet, and you hear someone in the audience shout out, "I love you," and I don't know if this is just a Los Angeles audience thing, but like there were a few people in the audience who were just like shouting like all these cheering all these words of encouragement like really loudly. And so I don't know if it's an LA thing. I'm trying to remember if there was anything like that when I saw Kansas, Peter Gabriel, and Seal, Trevor Horn this earlier this year. This is definitely where it felt most noticeable to me, I think, because other Yes shows I've been to in San Diego and Las Vegas, I don't remember this sort of thing. But and Anaheim as well. But um, hey, they could see that people are really into them. I think Jeff probably like heard that person, but based on like I don't know, it just felt like he was far away, but from the look on Jeff, it sounded like he noticed that person. But yeah, they put the rest of South Side of the Sky, and then after that, they did this as a tribute to Alan, of course, Turn of the Century. I think John Davison gave the like spoken intro to this, in between songs, talking to the audience, saying, this showcases a bit of the softer side of Alan's writing, that type of thing. And, Turn of the Century, always such a beautiful song. They did it so well here. And then after that, they did Don't Kill the Whale. So, a cut from Tormado. And that was done real good as well. I almost said well as well. That would have been strange. Don't Kill the Well. I don't know. And then finally they did a song from Mirror to the Sky, which was Cut from the Stars. And they did it very well. It was full of energy. It felt like they conveyed the essence of it from the album. But unfortunately, that's the only Mirror to the Sky song that they played at this show. I know that at the first show of this tour, in Lilith, Pennsylvania, they performed All Connected after Cut from the or before Cut from the Stars. And before All Connected, they played Rhythm of Love. So at that first show of the tour, the order went Don't Kill the Whale, Rhythm of Love, All Connected, Cut from the Stars. So I found a clip from that show on YouTube of Rhythm of Love, and YouTube is not always great at conveying how it sounded at the actual show because, different phones and where the person's seated and whatnot. But based on the recording, it felt like Rhythm of Love was kind of missing something. I'm not sure what. But Steve did do an interesting bit during the instrumental part of the song, but they ended up cutting it. Um, and I also checked out, on YouTube, you can hear All Connected from that show. And I thought they performed it pretty well there. So I don't know why they ended up cutting it. I don't know if they felt like maybe they were a bit unhappy with how it came out, or I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if they didn't rehearse it enough and didn't feel comfortable enough with it, but I really wish that they had kept All Connected in the set because you're. I know it's the classic Tales of Yes tour, but I think it's also really important to showcase the new material. I mean, in the tour book, there's even a. This was before the tour happened, so things change over time, but someone from the band said we're looking forward to playing a few songs from the new album. And two songs to me is a couple. It's not a few. So it makes me wonder, like, was there at least one other song that they were thinking of playing for this tour from the new album? And if so, what would it have been? I feel like Circles of Time wouldn't be too difficult to play. And Luminous maybe wouldn't be too big of an ask either. The title track Mirror to the Sky, it's an epic, so I can see how the thinking might be that might take up a huge chunk of the set when we want to play all this other stuff. But even if that was the only song played on this tour, it would have been a good representative of the album. But without the title track, having Cut from the Stars and All Connected, that would have been something. Cut from the Stars is great. Um, I was thinking actually about how ironic it is that it has cut in the title, but it was not cut from the set like All Connected was. Between the two, I do prefer All Connected. So I hope that when Yes bring this tour across the pond, that they reinstate All Connected into the set. Do more rehearsal for it if you need to, and maybe consider incorporating another Mirror to the Sky song, or even put in, keeping the Mirror to the Sky songs, but also swap out a couple of the older things so that you can play The Ice Bridge and Dare to Know again if that's what they're most comfortable playing from the Quest, or if not those, maybe a different track or two from that album, because showcasing the newer stuff is very important, and there are lots of fans who would really appreciate that. So after that amazing Cut from the Stars performance, we got the Tales medley, and this has been a source of controversy amongst Yes fans. There are varying opinions on it, but I'll try to sort of lay out how it went. So it's Steve Howe talked a little bit before about the album, and then they went into the Dawn of a Light line, the opening chant section of Revealing Signs of God, and people got very excited. And then after the chant, they got into what happened to this song we once knew so well. And after that section, they went into They Move Fast, They Tell Me. And then I think they went back to the what happened to this song a bit, as it's played toward the end of that side one. And it felt strange to me as some of the moments in the song that they chose to, because of the words, the what happened to this song we once knew so well, and They Move Fast, They Tell Me. It almost invites one, maybe unintentionally, to think about how the song is not being played the way that they remembered, and they're moving fast through it, so it feels sort of like skipping through the record or CD or whatever to sort of get a feel of how the album sounds. And then they shifted into a bit of the remembering. So this was the what's the okay uh yeah, because I remember it included the "I must have waited all my life for this," that bit of revealing, and then after they finished the revealing stuff, they uh, went into yeah, I reach over and the fruit of life stands still part. Going through those verses and out in the city running free. Um, Sense of companions, sides that be. Strength of the meeting lies with you. And then I think after that, I went into the don the cap and close your eyes bit, going into for going further down, you know, reading those verses and including the force a bit between the mouth of freedom section, ending with remember to sail the skies. And then I think after that, right after that, they went into relay here, all the dying cried before you. And I think it was rather bold to include that bit because, when you hear relayer, of course it was in this song, The Remembering first, but you can't help but think of the relayer album. So, um, it, again, unintentionally, I'm sure it could remind people of the album Relayer and how it was originally planned to be played in its entirety and kept getting pushed back until it got canceled. So there are a few bits of this medley where I feel like they could have uh, cut uh, them out and maybe done other different bits. Like maybe for revealing, you could have swapped out a couple of those bits and maybe done the studio run through version where it it's like and through the rhythm of moving slowly, doing that bit fast paced like on the studio run through version. Um, but I don't know, maybe when they were rehearsing this medley, they got so into it that they weren't thinking about how certain bits might unintentionally come across. I should mention that when it got into the remembering bit, maybe even a little bit earlier during the revealing bit, there were several people who got up from their seats and they eventually came back. Like I saw people get out and come back in. So I think during this medley, some people figured that this was when they felt comfortable, going to use the restroom or get a drink and then come back or whatever. So the medley isn't resonating with everyone, but my stance is that some of the transitions feel abrupt, even though the performances of each individual section are really good. And if I had to choose between not having it for this tour and having it for this tour, I'd rather have it than not have it because you need something to represent Tales from Topographic Oceans, especially when we're butting up against its 50th anniversary. And I would say that, um, but I would say that for future tours, I would kind of want them to consider playing the Remembering because, in the tour book, you hear about, John Davison really wants to sing all of the Remembering, and Jay Shellen even said that would be cool. And Jay was saying in the tour book, I'd love to play all of Tales in its entirety someday. And I mean, that's a dream, right? But I feel like the Remembering would be cool because they they've played bits of the other ones before, revealing a ritual in their entirety, leaves the green from the ancient, and the Remembering would be a nice deep pull. But yeah, instead they decide to do this 20-minute medley, trying to sum up tales from topographic oceans into one side in essence. And I kind of wonder, like, were they going back and forth trying to decide which piece from Tales to do, and then they couldn't decide? Like, did each person have their own side that they really wanted to play, and the remaining person couldn't break the tie, and then they just decided to play something from all of it? Or was the decision making that they really wanted to represent every side of Tales? I'm very curious to hear like what was the decision making behind that. But yeah, after the remembering bit, they went into Leaves of Green. Um, so very straightforward. It was just that section. I kind of wish that they had, if they're gonna include bits throughout all of these sides, I do wish that they had incorporated a bit of the weird percussion stuff from the ancient. I mean, they did that on the big medley in '78, so it could be a little homage to that. Um, and I remember on the topographic drama tour, they even sang the bit that came before Leaves of Green. But here it's just the Leaves of Green section, and then that goes into a ritual, the da 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 da. And then after that instrumental section, the vocals were holding doors, we find our way, we look, and going into um, the repeating stuff. Like I think up to doesn't matter at all if I remember correctly. You can find the Tales medley, um, like on some YouTube clips. I'm sure, and um, hopefully I'm like describing it very well, but going off by memory. But yeah, after that bit, they surprisingly the drumming section where it's like everyone is like the bombastic thing that is such a spectacle in various live versions of Ritual. Surprisingly, they decide not to have that in the medley. It goes into the new Some Du Soleil section at the end, like Hold Me My Love, that whole thing, and singing that to the end and ending with New Some Du Soleil. So it was fascinating to see the way that this medley played out. And like I said, the performances were top notch. Like everyone was giving all of their energy, but it's just that the transitions felt so abrupt. And I was trying to like think about the way that other medleys have been done. The big medley on the Tormata tour, at least there it feels like they basically play the whole of Time and a Word and the whole of Long Distance Runaround. All the words at least. Maybe without the bits that were repeated before the end, but it felt like the whole songs, and then you get a bit of the fish and a little bit of survival, and a little hint of the ancient before going into some of Perpetual Change. And like it feels more straightforward, the bits that they do, because it's not skipping around to different parts of a side. They're basically taking uh, big sections of each of these songs and doing from start to finish of those sections. So it basically feels like the complete song. Like Perpetual Change feels full, and then all of Soon, they do all of Soon in that big medley. But I also feel like, I don't know, like I was kind of wondering how would this medley come across if other people tried it, like if some other bands or tribute bands tried it, like how would people feel then? It's kind of curious. And I was also thinking of the Circa medley and how it was all instrumental, going through different bits of each song, and that was impressive. I think because it was mostly like almost all instrumental, it felt like it wasn't missing stuff. or escaping around too much. Um, and is trying to do one song from almost every Yes album. That one, or the instrumental bits anyway. So the Tales medley, it's not gonna resonate with everyone. I do think it's fascinating, but I can see how some people might be put off. I mean, people going into this, I feel like, my friends were saying that they enjoyed it, but I could also imagine there might be people who are unaware of this medley going in, and maybe when they hear the opening chant for revealing, they might be taken aback and be like, "Wait, what?" When they jump to like later in the song and then onto a section from a different song, and maybe it's that person's. Maybe that person has never seen Revealing Signs of God in full before, and then they feel like that opportunity is taken away, and instead you have this medley. So again, I can see pros and cons of it. Like it does try to represent each side of that monumental double album, but yeah, I don't know. Like, what would have been a smoother way to do it? I'm not exactly sure at the moment. It's something to ponder, I guess. Um, and but after that, they leave the stage and then come back for the encores, which are of course Roundabout and then Starship Trooper. Energetic as ever. The audiences were very into it. I was as well, obviously, but yeah, like this was a very lively audience. Um, and again, the band members were very energetic. I could see the chemistry. John Davison at one point, holding a guitar, went up to Jay at the drums. It looked like they were having a good time. I don't know if they were talking to each other or what, but and Billy enjoying himself, and Jeff on the keys, Steve, everyone seemed to be having a good time. Although uh, before the maybe this was before the encore, Steve asked a couple people in the front rows to put their phones away. And I think a couple points throughout, he might have been pointing at others with phones in the first few rows. It wasn't really distracting to me seeing him do that. Um, but I do think maybe there should have been a sign, at least for the first few rows, because maybe that's where it can be distracting for him. Telling people to not use their phones. Because I remember at the show I went to last year on the Close to the Edge 50th tour, there was a sign that said no phones, and so people complied, and it was all fine. So I feel like for these shows, there should be some sort of sign just so, the whole band is, not worried about any of that. But yeah, this was a really, really strong set from start to finish. Like I said, I do have my critiques, which I'll go through after taking a sip. I realize I've gone so long without taking a sip. But another interesting thing is that in the tour book, I think it was Jeff who said that uh, there's a section of the tour book where they talk about Yes songs, and Jeff is like, we're looking forward to, we're not gonna play all of that, but we're looking forward to maybe doing some of that or something to that effect. And really, the only songs that were at this concert and on Yes songs were I've Seen All Good People, Roundabout, and Starship Troopers. So the mainstays. Although John Davison sang Mother Life and not Mother Earth like on Yes songs, but John Anderson changing the words and Starship Trooper somewhere along the line, but Davison stuck to Mother Life. So it was kind of a strange comment in the interview. I kind of wonder if maybe they had other stuff in mind from that album. But I will say that I am glad that they didn't play anything from the Close to the Edge album, because again, one of my top Yes albums, very monumental, important to progressive rock, but it's been done time and time again. Last year was the anniversary, so that was the excuse, and I'm glad that they abstained from playing any of that album for this particular set. So that was a good decision. Now, that being said, again, I would like a few of these classics to be swapped out so that newer material from Mirror to the Sky and maybe The Quest could be played. Like I've said before, I've seen All Good People and Roundabout and even Starship Trooper, I'd say, have been played time and time again. And I would really like those to be swapped out so that newer stuff could be played. But if they feel like they need to keep those in because those are the staples, the classics, then I would say swap out um, maybe Don't Kill the Whale, um, South Side of the Sky. I feel like South Side of the Sky is not really a deep cut anymore. I'd even be fine with Machine Messiah or Going for the One being swapped out. Like, I know they need something energetic to start the show, but to that, I would say start with The Ice Bridge. That's a very energetic song. It'd be a cool way to start the set. Um, Keep In It Will Be a Good Day. I'm very happy with that. That's definitely a deep cut. And Time and a Word, again, we've heard it many times before, but I guess they want to represent the Banks era. But like I said, I'd be happy with another song from that era being played. The America instrumental edit, it's interesting, but yeah, I don't know. What are people's thoughts on that? Because I like the quirkiness of it, but I also wouldn't mind it being swapped out for something newer. Um, but yeah, Turn of the Century, Keep In. It's a great tribute to Alan. Uh, Anything from Tales, keep that in. So yeah, I think those would be my preferences personally. And I do wonder, like, were any shows from last year's tour recorded for a possible live album? Because it would be nice to have a live album that has the Quest songs, the couple of them that they put on that tour on something official. And also, I'd really like Mirror to the Sky songs, Cut from the Stars and All Connected. Hopefully, if they reinstate it on something official. I'd like another new live album, uh, and have those showcase not just the old material, which are performed very excellently, but also the new material. Take chances, make big swings, showcase. What's Yes putting out now in the studio, like that you need to check out. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on the set list. Uh, and again, I enjoyed the show from start to finish. I was really into it. But these suggestions I have, I think, would really be appreciated, not just by me, but a bunch of Yes fans. So yeah, it was a really good show overall, though. And like may have mentioned earlier, once the show ended, I went up to Adam, Christina, and the others, and we were really happy with the show overall. Um, Adam had not seen the setlist spoilers, so he was surprised and he really enjoyed it. And for me, it was impossible to avoid the setlist spoilers because I kept seeing posts and uh, I was just like, I'm I've already had pretty much the set list spoiled in bits and pieces, so I might as well just read what it is and then just wait until the actual show to hear it and then look at the clips of the songs that got dropped from the set list. Um, so yeah, overall a great night, and again this tour book, which I still want to talk about. Um, oh, I see a comment from Dave Watkinson. If the medley was introduced as a medley, saying the band chose their favorite sections and this was an anniversary and the first time in decades some are being heard. King Crimson had a sign and everyone complied with it. Minor or Mirror to the Sky should be played. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great song. So yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with you there, Dave. Um, like we enjoy the band, support the band, but there are like little things here and there where, uh, a little changes here and there would be really appreciated, and just taking more chances. But yeah, the tour book is really great. The Gottlieb brothers did an excellent job with this. It's divided into four sections. Um, oh, like I said, Roger Dean signed it there. Still, like, really like accepting that that happened. It's divided into four parts: A Mirror to the Sky, Yes Songs, Tales from Topographic Oceans, and Classic Tales of Yes. So there's talk of the new album, and of course celebrating the 50th anniversaries of the band's first live album and their first album with Alan, which that anniversary show in December that Dad and I are gonna do. I'm really looking forward to that. Um, but yeah, they talk about Mirror to the Sky again and how Thomas Weber at Inside Out Music was very encouraging of them. Like once they finish a quest, encouraging them to go back into the studio with the momentum they have. And between this and Thomas Weber being very supportive of Trevor Rabin with his Rio album, like there's some great stuff going on with these guys. So yeah, I'm really glad they at least devote a section to Mirror to the Sky here. You get quotes from each of the band members and some great photos, like I showed earlier. Uh, yes, you get a bunch of great photos, and this camera doesn't do it justice. Like you gotta see these on the page. That's why I feel so hesitant to like show this on there because I'm like, oh man, it's not gonna look as good. You see them in the studio. Um, John Davison looks really into it there. Oh, and you got the Mirror to the Sky painting. Uh, yeah, there's some great illustrations here. Again, like a couple sketches of the art. They get the Yes Songs portion. They got quotes from Eddie Offord in here, so it's cool to see his take on the thing and what was like mixing the live album. And you also get the perspectives of the younger members. Jay Shellen even talked about talking shop with Bill Bruford at the John Wetton and Extraordinary Life concert at Trading Boundaries a few months ago. Um, and there's some really great memorabilia here. Get like this poster. Yeah, I mean, Yes Songs is such a moment in time. There's even 2 pages of an interview with Bill Bruford here. Talks a little bit about influences and his thoughts on the title of the genre, classic rock, an interesting take there. He touched on the Gottlieb brothers. Touched on the differences between Earthworks and King Crimson and how between Yes and King Crimson rather, and how Earthworks kind of felt like it had a blend of the energies from that each of those had respectively. Um, there's a question here I was not expecting, which was why Bill didn't speak at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I think here it comes across jokingly. He says because Rick took so long. But then after that, he says, In truth, I had nothing to say," which kind of surprises me because I would have thought Bill might have had at least a couple sentences to say. But um, I'm glad that the year after that, he at least got to do his speech in front of a couple of Yes shows, and he was even at the unveiling of the plaque at the Lucky Horseshoe Cafe. So yeah, you get an interview with Bill here, and of course, there's lots of love for Roger Dean in this. Um, yeah, you get the Yes songs stuff, um, and some great photos from the Yes songs era. Yeah, you see the different discs. It's really cool. There's a page here about the Progeny box set, the one from 2015 that included 7 shows from 72. And I'm not sure that I knew that John Anderson had the flu around that time, because when I listened to those uh, recordings, like, I had no idea. Like, he just still sounds in top form there. Some more Yes Songs memorabilia, and then the Tales from Topographic Oceans section. And it's really neat. Apparently, John Davison ended up reading autobiography of a yogi something like 20 years ago. A couple of the other band members said that they haven't read it, but you get to see people's like perception of the album, especially with the younger band members. It's really cool. Um, and because, what it was like for them listening to the album back in the day and how the music still resonates. It's a very powerful album. Again, very much looking forward to me and Dad talking about Tales for its anniversary episode next month. Um, and yeah, and Jeff is very complimentary to Rick's playing on the album, and it's like saying like it's kind of a shame that he's not as proud of it as like the Yes fans are. Talking about each of these songs from that album, and of course you got the Tales artwork there. It's just iconic. It's so good. Let's see, got a bunch of memorabilia and some great photos of each of the band members. There's Eddie right there. And yeah, this is a really great tour book. It's just lots of Tales memorabilia. It's so cool. um, yeah, I'm trying to get to the place. They list the tour dates. Even has a scan of the tour program from the Tales tour, which is really cool. Let's see, American tour 74. I'm just looking through all these cool photos here. Again, I don't want to spoil the whole thing, so I hope that people feel encouraged to get this. And there's a mention of the Yes balloon, which Dave Watkinson has written about. You can find that on Yes World, I'm sure. So that's really cool. And then Classic Tales of Yes section. It's basically a quote from Steve Howe and then a bunch of photos of the current lineup. We just make this weird music. We're weird. I think that's Yes. If we hadn't ever been weird, we wouldn't be here now. The weirdness and allowing weird stuff to happen is why we were together. It wasn't to do the ordinary, it was to do the extraordinary. And that's a cool note to end on. And there's some great photos of. Oh, and there's a quote from Jeff as well. I forgot about that. Okay, yeah, they each have a quote. Okay, so yeah, I'll just leave the rest for you all to read when you get this book. Again, it's it's a great addition to the collection, and thanks again to the Gottlieb brothers for how they put this together. Oh, there's also the Roger Dean and Trading Boundaries portion. So again, if you ever have a chance to see Roger's art in person, like you gotta. And yeah, that's the tour book. It's very excellent. Oh, that's a nice, yeah. Oh, you get the full discography at the back as well, I should mention. So, overall, I'm very happy with this recent experience. Um, when I saw them last year, I could tell that the performances were great, but because of like all the traveling that I'd been doing earlier in the day, my mindset wasn't quite as in it. But here I was like definitely in it, and it was just very enjoyable from start to finish. So yeah, that's my review of that show at the Wiltern, and we'll be back tomorrow, November 2nd at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. UK time, with our review of the excellent Keith Emerson box set Variations. This is a 20 CD box set, and just a lot of breadth in that thing. Um, so, yeah, we'll be reviewing that. And then I'm just looking at the schedule real quick. November 7th is the 40th anniversary of 90125. So we'll be going live that day at 2 p.m. Pacific. And 2 hours before that at noon Pacific, my dad, well, tentatively, he'll be doing a vlog over on the Drum Talk TV page on Facebook, playing some of 90125. And then, yeah, so keep an eye out for those. Like, those will be a lot of fun. And yeah, you can follow us on facebook.com/Yesshift, where these go live, and then the videos get posted on youtube.com/@Yesshift. And you can also find the audio, like wherever podcasts are found. You'll probably find us, just type Yesshift in your podcasting app. And you can write to us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Comments, suggestions, or just convos. And yeah, we'll see you all soon.